back. We took a short break, but the panelists here have been having a conversation around the matters that we're talking about. And now I want us to make a transition to talk about the election timelines. And first of all, we know that IEBC will be carrying out the final enhanced continuous voter registration. I want us to look at some of the slides that talk about the dates and the target. We know that they should be beginning on the 17th of January 2022, continuing all the way to 6th of February 2022. We should be around 3 weeks, and they are targeting to register over 4 million new voters. You recall that in the November registration, the target was, excuse me, over 6 million new voters, but they were able to get 1.5, so the balance is 4.5, and the projection is that should they get all this, then the total voter register should be somewhere about 25.6 million voters. Something else to note is that 3 BVR kits will be deployed to every ward. We have 1,450 wards, and more kits will be sent to learning institutions, and the IEBC will enhance mobilization of new voters. That's what is just about to happen in about 7 days or so. But also there are some other timelines which we'll be looking at later that talk about when public or state officers, public officers actually, people working with the government should be stepping out of office to go and run for politics. Ideally should be the 9th of February, but there's a matter in court that has been filed, and the petitioner gotten some orders, but IEBC says that well, the law is very clear that public officers have to resign by the 9th of February. But Senator Lekina, let me begin with you as we look at this. Honorable boss, I'll get to you. Senator Lekina, as you talk about the preparations to the elections, it's now just about 7 months. A bit of work has been done, so much still yet to be done. Do you feel confident about the polls that you are heading into, and what do you think must be done within the very short time that the country has amidst all these political contestations?
First of all, there are a couple of things which Kenyans ought to keep in mind when it comes to the issue of the timeline set by IEBC. There are a few things which will be altered if the Senate passes the Political Parties Amendment Bill, because there are timelines for nominations which are set out in the new Political Parties Amendment Bill. If the Senate agrees with the National Assembly and passes them, there are timelines for sending in your list of the party list. So all those timelines are got to be factored in. The most important one that we should talk about now is that we want more people to be registered to vote. We know that February 28th is the deadline. That is when IEBC suspend all voter registration. We know they wanted to register about 4.6 million people. They only managed to register about 1.5. And we want to encourage the youth, because the Kenyan population is made up of about 70% youth. We want to encourage them to register. You cannot tell me it's only 1.5 million youth who have attained the age of 18 from the time of 2017. I'm sure we have so many other youth who can be able to, who are going to be impacted by the results or the outcome of the elections that ought to be registered. We know the timelines are set, and we are quite aware that the official campaign period begins May 10th. So for 3 months we'll be able...
It's actually May 30th.
Is it May 30th? I think May 10th, one of the two. You can look at it. If it's May, it's still May. I know there is a nomination of presidential candidates. I think it is the one for May 10th. That ought to be done. I have the timeline. I can verify the timeline for you, and I can be able to clarify. But I think, in a nutshell, what I'm saying is this: these timelines will be affected by the new Political Parties Amendment Bill if it becomes law, because of the nomination exercise, which is defined in the amendments that they brought before the Senate. It is also defined the time when a coalition party will be able to finalize its arrangement and when they need to send the information to the political parties registrar. So these timelines are very clear, because you see, when it comes to elections laws, it is not only the IEBC Act that we look at. We look at the Elections Act, we look at the Political Parties Act, we look at a number of elections laws that will be able to define the roadmap into the 2022 elections. So really there's a lot that still has to take place. And all those things we cannot look at something independently. We have to look at the entire omnibus so that we know how is it that we're getting into the 2022 elections.
Right, they are all interconnected. And just to clarify that, actually the official campaigns begin on May 30th until August 6th, and then presidential nominations are between May 30th and June 10, and for so many other seats it's between the same dates. But Honorable Boss, of course we know what's happening at the political parties amendment bill, which we'll be talking about next, but also I spoke to the leader of majority, Amos Kimunyi. I think it was on 28th or thereabout of December, and he said that after this bill, then there should come a review of the Elections Act and other laws that are related to elections. How safe are we, and how soon must we conclude with these amendments for us to say that now we can say it's all systems go for the road to elections?
Can I just correct you?
Yeah.
The official campaigns begin May 10th.
Okay, all right.
Not May 30th. Let us be very clear.
We'll look at that later on because you have the election operations plan from IEBC. But Honorable Boss, your response on when we should feel safe to really go?
We are hoping that within the month of February, then any laws that need to be, election laws that need to be dealt with will have been dealt with by that time. Reason being that the political parties will be having their party primaries in end of April, which means that people will officially be campaigning for their party primaries or party nominations in the month of March and April. So all that needs to have been resolved. But I think what is existing is mostly the regulations, because I think the laws, we don't have too many amendments on the actual law, but it is on the actual elections law. It's on the regulations, which already have been tabled by IEBC to the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. What is happening at the moment is what we call the civic education stage. That's why you find parties going around explaining to their supporters what the party presents, and that's what actually happened in Eldoret. The Deputy President went to great lengths to explain his economic model to his supporters and say that this is what I changed. So we're having the civic education stage now. Then we'll have the party primaries, and then we'll have the official campaign period.
It's interesting you call it civic education.
It is called civic education. It's even under IEBC, they have a civic education department.
No, what political parties are doing now is it campaigns or civic education? It's
civic education. That's what we call it as an election manager.
Okay.
That is what we call it, because in fact, what should be happening is IEBC has a department of civic education, which I used to be under my docket. They are supposed to be working with various civil society groups, etc., to make sure that the electorate are well informed, so that they can make an informed decision. Help them be able to decide just let them know that they have the power to listen to all parties and all candidates and various people to say what they have in store for them. And then based on that, because people have to understand party ideology, and it's a very important stage of the electoral calendar. Remember, the electoral calendar is a 5-year cycle. We Kenyans assume it's 1 year. It's actually a 5-year cycle. Right. Civic education, doing the laws, making sure that the laws are passed and so on, are a very important aspect. And the political parties act is very different. The mandate of the political parties registrar is very different from the IEBC. Yes, they complement each other. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. And excuse me, Senator Mwaura. So now looking at where we are in these preparations for the elections, and of course there has been concern that laws should not be amended so close to an election, yet Parliament would appear not to have really played its role in ensuring early consideration of all these bills in good time. So how does that affect the preparations, and are you satisfied with what IEBC has been doing and what it has done, including on the voter registration?
Yeah, I think just before I come into that and I'll answer, please let's also remember that the Eldoret meeting was about speaking about the issues of the people. So when you see this newspaper Daily Nation trying to say that the issue of the bottom up. The truth of the matter is that we were discussing about the cost of living and how the deputy president, if he becomes president, the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya, is going to look at the cost of living. And I can see even Kenyans are asking about why, for example, a liter of cooking oil is costing 300 shillings or a liter of petrol is costing 130 shillings. The cost of living is a real debate that needs to be discussed, and because now, the mainstream media has decided to go on an issue that Linturi never really quite said, then we are missing the point, and that is how we end up subjugating the interests of the people.
Senator, I don't know why you keep going back to that issue.
That come to our rallies. But let me say this, Gituko, Sam, my good friend, that Kriegler warned us, Sam, he warned us that we should not change the rules too close to elections. But that's what we do. We did it in 2013, we did it in 2017, and it's going to be repeated again, especially because now people's attention is drawn to the elections. Unfortunately, when you change laws very close to the elections, they get caught up in the politics of the moment. But I must credit the State Law Office and the bodies like IEBC, because I've been part of that process. The former registrar of the political parties, not the current one, we had a task force which has actually helped me to draw up the political parties' primaries bill and other electoral amendments. So they are prepared way in advance. I remember in 2013, we started discussing about election campaign financing bill, but then it was shelved until it was suspended in the 11th Parliament. So it is not fair to change rules now, because they are caught up by which political persuasions that exist currently, and yet there should be an even application of the law. So we are likely not to get very good laws, because the thinking should happen soon after elections, and that is when you should change the laws. Right now you start seeing people trying to push nomination dates to be much closer to the main election, because that ensuing period between April and August, many of the candidates really suffer. But at the same time, it is also helping enough time for us to resolve disputes from the political party primaries and to make sure that the party lists are actually adhering to the Constitution, for example. But I must say also, if then they have to be brought, let them be brought immediately. Parliament resumes in February, January, February, so that they are done in the month of February. And that they can be fast-tracked in both houses, so that then by the time people go for nominations, the rules are clear. Why? Because in some regions, nominations are actually the real elections. And that cannot be gainsaid. So that then by the time you get the candidate, and we need actually to bring party primaries within the ambit of the law. I hope and believe if my party primaries bill can be fast-tracked and passed, it will be a very good watershed, because that is where...
How far is it now?
It has gone for first reading in the Senate. It's awaiting second reading. So it's still way. But it can. I mean, the political parties amendment bill was just brought up over the Christmas holidays. And you know, by the way...
And when did you table it?
Quite a long time ago. But of course, you know, I was out for 7 months.
Which month was it?
Yeah,
Which year?
Well, we made it last in 2020. I introduced it in 2021, so it has not been processed as yet. But it is a very important law, because that is where great leaders are actually, cannibalized. And political parties that form just around elections time do not really have enough capacity to conduct national plebiscites. And that is
in your view, is there any political party at this moment that has that capacity to conduct a national nominations
I honestly think, and this is a very fair statement I'm making, the political parties will do their best, but still, you still see a lot of shambolism across the political divide. And that is where we cheat our aspirants, because when you pay that nomination fee, you want to have a fair. So all of us will say we'll have a free and fair. But if IBC itself has teething problems, Sam, what about a nascent political party? So we have to make sure, even the ones that are old, because sometimes it's not in the interest of the political party leaders to have fair nominations. You get,
Yeah.
And yet that is what is promised to people. So we need to have, as a country, not as an individual political party, as a country, to have a standard of how party nominations are done, and that can only be through the party primaries bill.
Okay.
That we were able to develop with the Lucy Ndongo when she was Registrar of Political Parties, and I hope that they can actually see light of day.
Yet it's so far in that process, because after finishing in the Senate, just to go to the National Assembly, probably it may need mediation and eventually becoming law.
A bill can be passed, actually, some within 1 or 2 weeks, if there is political goodwill.
Do you think there is
like the political
amendment bill? You know, these December holiday special sittings are usually chaotic. In 2014, my court was torn by one member. I don't want to mention because now we belong to the same political thinking, but they are always very chaotic. But and that is the contestation we are going to see. But I think even for sitting members of parliament, anyone who is looking for to come back and to contest in the next election wants a fair playing ground.
All right. Yeah. All right. Senator Lekina, in your view, is there any political party or is it movement that has gotten to that point of they can actually assure their aspirants and the nation that they are going to have fair nominations? Because I've heard from ODM saying that universal suffrage will be an option, yes, but last resort. There will be other options to look at, whether it's popularity of the candidate, scientific research, whether it's direct nomination, or even that universal suffrage. For UDA, we've heard the Deputy President saying that he's actually going to take charge of the process because he has been there and he has the experience. Other political parties obviously have their nomination rules that they have submitted to IEBC, but are we at that point that we can trust the organs of a political party or movement to go ahead and do free, fair, and credible nomination?
I think I'm happy you brought that issue right now, before we even talk about the political parties amendment bill, because at first I didn't really understand the entire hula baloo in the National Assembly as to why people should not be voting for the political parties amendment bill. Because if you look at the political parties amendment bill, there is a section entirely, I think it begins in section 38, where there's a new amendment to the political parties bill that talks about nominations. You know, in other countries like Nigeria, they do not have direct nominations. They only have indirect nomination. Right now, what the political parties amendment bill has brought in is to give political parties an avenue to carry out their free and fair nominations. Because the political parties secretary, the registrar of political parties, will also be part and parcel of that exercise. So the political parties amendment bill is introducing 2 different types of nomination. One, which is a direct nomination by only registered members. You know, you asked a very, very pertinent question. Is there any political party that can carry out a nomination? And I think when we pass the political parties amendment bill, and now it becomes the Political Parties Act, it will be able to guarantee that any political party can carry out that exercise, because that exercise, there are certain prerequisites. One, you have to submit a certified, list of members who belong to that political party. It will not be a situation now where, let's say, for instance, in Narok, we have candidates who run under UDA and other candidates who run under ODM. It will not be a situation whereby the candidates of UDA will come and vote for a candidate of ODM in the primaries, so that they can be a weaker one, so that they can be able to defeat that person. So I think the direction that we are taking, and this is why we need to demystify to Kenyans. We need to explain to Kenyans. And I cannot wait for this bill to be moved. You know, this bill, the political parties bill, is being tabled in the House, in the Senate tomorrow. I cannot wait for the second reading, for us to be able to go line item, compare apples to apples, define to Kenyans and say, why is it that the proponents of the new political parties bill are pushing it? They have seen dangers in nominations. They have seen areas where you cannot carry out a direct nomination. You have to do indirect nomination. If you go to Nigeria, there's nothing like direct nomination. Everything is indirect nomination. So really, I think there's so many good things. And for me to be able to answer your question, let us pass the political parties amendment bill. Let it become an act. Then we will follow the procedures which are defined in the political parties amendment bill in carrying out nominations. The Registrar of Political Parties will have to publish the list of all the members of that political parties. You, as a candidate who is running, who has paid that nomination fee, will be entitled to receive a certified copy from the Registrar of Political Parties on the names of all political, all members who belong to their party. So really, your answer will be a yes once this political parties amendment bill has become law. But as we speak right now, it is very confusing, because you don't know who is a member of a political party and who is not a member of that political party.
That's interesting. And I want to